My son took a class in high school where they made something out of wood, and when I saw it, when he brought it home, I knew that the glue probably was not going to hold. I could just tell the way they glued it up and what they used, it wasn't a good glue joint. And I've had to fix it once, and now it needs fixed again. So I thought this is a great time to teach proper gluing techniques, some things to do, some things not to do, and so that you can glue your boards up the right way and make sure you get a nice strong joint. So let's get started. Before I'm going to show you how to properly glue up a board, I'm going to show you where you can have potential problems. When my son brought this home, the first thing I saw was, first of all, I assumed from a distance these were all just hardwoods. They're actually not. They are plywood painted and glued. So that is problem number one, but we'll get to that in a minute. If they were hardwoods, my biggest concern would be the end grain meeting this. That is not a strong glue joint. Anytime the end of a board, if you try to glue the end of a board to another board, it never bonds well. The grains run in different directions. Usually the end of a board is porous, so the glue seeps back in the grain. It doesn't stay on the surface as well, and you do not get a good bond. I highly recommend never gluing end grain together. We use these two boards as an example. You would not want to try to glue them together like this. Okay, you can see the end of the board's porous. It's where you see all the rings of the tree, and it just soaks the glue up, and it does not bond well at all. That will break, I guarantee it. So I knew, even if this was hardwood, that this entire edge here and here was at risk. You can't even glue end grain to the edge of the board. That will not hold either. Not without some other type of fastener. You can check my other videos. I showed how to use biscuit joiner. I've also shown how to do dowels. There are other ways to join these together that will work, but just glue on the surface to glue on the surface will not hold. So, getting to this project again, this piece fell off, and I can tell it was a glue issue, and I'm not even sure what kind of glue they used, because it almost looks like it's a clear glue. It's not wood glue. It almost looks like hot glue, but I don't know that that's what it is. So I've had to fix this in the past. Now, what I've done to fix it is I've used pocket hole screws. So I ran a pocket hole here, ran pocket holes here, ran pocket holes here, because this came apart, and the entire thing came loose from this, if I remember correctly. So what I'm going to do to fix this is exactly what I did to fix these. This will be pocket holed to this piece. I will also probably tie it together up here to help strengthen everything. So that's how I'm going to fix this, but I just wanted to preface all that so you can see ways in which gluing boards is not efficient. Now, the correct way to glue up a board would be edge to edge, like so. And what you can do then is you can make wider panels just by adding boards. So if I wanted this to be wider, I could keep going. Now, in this type of situation, you can just use glue. It will do the job perfectly fine. If you do it properly, the glue joint should be just as strong as the wood, if not stronger. You really should never be able to re-break it on the glue joint. If you would try, what typically would happen if you do it properly is You might be able to break it close to the glue joint, but it's going to pull grain away from one of the two boards, and it's going to be stuck to it, and it won't be a nice break, clean break. So I'm going to show you now how to properly glue up boards. Maybe we'll just glue all three of these. I don't really have a need for them to be wider, but it would be a good demonstration. Now we're going to start. I'm using these Jorgensen Cabinet Master clamps. They work really good. They keep everything nice and parallel, and they're great for glue ups. At the bare minimum, you would want a bar clamp, and you would, in this situation, for this length of board, most likely will want 3 clamps. So I only have 2 of these clamps. I'm going to use a bar clamp for the middle, so you can see all both kinds of clamps. Now, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of cardboard underneath this. The glue is going to ooze out and drip. I don't really want it to drip on this board underneath, so I'm going to put cardboard under it so that it drips onto that. To start off, you have to decide how you want the boards to be positioned. You need to determine this before you start, because obviously once it's glued up, then you can't change it. So just looking at these boards, and I'm not making anything with this. This is just for demonstration purposes. I do see that there is some leftover bark out here. So if I were gluing this up, most likely I will have already counted for that and know that I need to cut it off out here somewhere. So I want this to be on the outer edge for sure, so I can cut that off. You're going to want to find a nice side and then make that side up for all the pieces. Now, the last thing is, if you look at the end grain of your wood, usually on most pieces, you can see a direction that the end grain is arcing. So I can see this looks like it might have been close to the center of the tree. All the rings are arcing this way. All right, what you want to do, if possible, it's not always possible, but what you want to do, I don't know if you can see this or not, this one's arcing this way as well, is you want to alternate them. So if one arcs one way, the next one, try to make it arc the opposite way. And what that helps to do is it helps prevent the panel from warping. For over time, it keeps it straighter, and it's something you want to try to do if you can. Because of that, and this other one, it really isn't showing much of anything. There, this other end looks, it's arcing this way. So what I want to do is I'm going to alternate these, so that means this one actually needs to be face down. And I kept the bark edge still on the outside. It's just going to be over here face down. And this one here needs to be face down as well. And we're going to glue it up right like that. The next thing you want to do is you want to line them up how you want them. So this one is a little bit shorter, which doesn't matter because I'm going to cut these after they're glued to the size I would need. So, but what I do want to do usually is try to line up the ends at one end so that I don't waste a bunch. You don't want to stagger them so they're like this. And now you got a big waist here, waist here. Try to get them close to lined up, at least at one end, so that you have enough after they're glued to get the length you need. Once you get it how you want it, I like to make a mark, whether it's an X that goes across all 3 pieces. It could be maybe a line with letters. It could be whatever you want to do, but some way to know this is how it needs to go. Because what we're going to do is we're going to turn these up on edge, and it's easy to lose track of which side you want it to be top and which side you want it to be the bottom. So now that we've got that done, all we're going to do is add glue. I'm just using a standard wood glue, Gorilla Glue. You can use Type Bond, you can use Gorilla Glue. Just get a standard wood glue. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a bead on each edge that needs glued. So I like to stand up my outer two so that I know the edge that's up is the only edge that gets glue on it. And then the middle one, both edges get glue on. So I'm going to do that right now. Now, when you're gluing, you don't have to do this by hand. I just think it's easier. You want to spread out the glue. Now you could use a brush, a stick, put a glove on, however you want to do it, but you want just a nice even layer. It doesn't need to be excessive, but it needs to be coated. You don't want dry spots anywhere on that edge. So I had a little bit extra on my finger. You don't really have to worry about the glue or the glue getting on the clamp. Your wood is not going to bond to the clamp. It might kind of bond, but it's easy to break free. And I just put my elbow in the glue. Okay. That's one negative. You don't want to reach across the glue. I put my elbow right in this, the glue on the corner of this first piece right over here. And now it's on my sweatshirt. So, oh well. So this one, I'm going to spread it out again. Oops. And I have some extra again. Now again, this is why it's helpful to mark. I would have probably forgot which side needed to be flipped back down. So that helps me with that. As for this, we're just going to come over here. We're going to spread this one out the same way. And again, if there's extra, I'm just going to carry it to the next surface with me. I'll probably have extra there as well. If that's the case, I will probably wipe it on this cardboard, like so. So we get this last one here, spread it out real well. Just making sure there's no spot that's dry on the edge, but I also don't want so much that it's going to run everywhere and make a huge mess. So I'm going to wipe this up in here where hopefully I don't get into it and get it all over my clothes again. And I'm going to line that X back up. Now, when you're gluing, you want clamps about every 6 inches or so, and you want them to start on the ends. I wouldn't go any more than 6 inches. And again, like start it out here on the end. Start it out here on the end. And the reason for that is if you don't, you end up sometimes with some gaps at the ends. I'm going to try to line up those marks as the best I can. And I'm just going to tighten this up. One thing you want to watch for is the boards will sometimes slide up and down. You want to try to level them out. If it gets really bad, there are ways to fix it using clamps to draw them down. You just got to be careful when you do that. If you clamp on the glue joint, make sure you're not using a clamp that's wood that is going to bond to these surfaces. So I've taken it where it had a problem. I would take it to the edge of the table and maybe draw part of it down to the table with a clamp and help level things out. A lot of times though, you can press them down to get them pretty level. They're never going to be perfect. And then snug the clamp back up and it should be fine. If you are having trouble getting it to go down, just loosen the clamp up a little bit. And I'm going to tighten until I see the glue ooze out in a bead. I don't want to over tighten it necessarily, but I do want to draw it in to where that gap closes, because it can gap a little bit, and I don't want to really see that. So the last clamp I'm going to throw on top. So we're going to put this right here. Same type of idea, just a different clamp. And I'm just going to draw it in like so. The glue on there is going to need removed if you're ever going to run it through a surface planer. It can dull the knives. If you catch it while it is starting to harden, sometimes it's nice to clean it off. And the way you would do that is it would feel like the outer layer wouldn't be sticky where you get glue on your hands. It would start to form like almost like a film on the outer layer. It might be a little bit soft underneath, and you can come in with, like, if you're really careful, with like a cabinet scraper or some kind of paint scraper, putty knife, and you can clean it off. You just got to be careful not to gouge the wood when you do that. Or you can wait till it's dry and just use like a paint scraper and just scrape it. And a lot of times they'll just pop right off. Wear safety glasses, because sometimes those chunks of glue can go flying when you do that. But other than that, this is done. It'll glue up. You have to read the instructions on your glue, but usually it starts to bond in half an hour or so, and you can work with it in 3 or 4 hours. I usually like to give it more like 8 hours just to make sure we got a good bond. I don't want it to break. So read the bottle of glue, follow the directions on that, and then you can clean it up, and you have a wider panel that you can use to make whatever it is you're making. If you like this content, hit that like button, subscribe button. I'm trying to bring some of the basic woodworking concepts in. I'm doing a series on that right now. So if you're a new woodworker, this should be perfect for you getting a good start and getting some base knowledge on how to do things. If you've done woodworking in the past, it might brush up on some of the stuff you learned that you may have forgotten, or maybe you learned something you didn't. So I hope that taught you how to glue up a board, and you get a better understanding of the proper way to do it, so you don't run into the problem that my son ran into with his project, and you don't have stuff that breaks and falls apart easily, because that stuff with humidity change and things like that, it can easily just break without you even doing anything, and not even dropping it. It can just break just by popping apart. A little bit of expansion or contraction, and there it goes. So I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions, drop them down there in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to help out. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you next time.